welcome to Shondaland's International Podcast Day celebration. I'm Mia with Shondaland.com, and I am so happy to be here with you all. It's going to be such a treat. I'm here. I've got my emotional support water bottle. We're going to have so much fun. So I see you all gathering in the comments. Introduce yourselves. We are friends today. So say your name, where you're from. I want to hear a little bit about you, what you're excited for this podcast day. If you have a podcast, if you love storytelling, if you listen to it, podcasts on walks or in the shower, get in the comments and just tell me everything you love about podcasts and about yourself. And we can get today started. So first, really quickly, you're probably wondering, why is Shondaland doing an International Podcast Day celebration? I watch the shows on TV. Well, this is really, really interesting because we have the Shondaland TV universe, but we also have the Shondaland audio universe. So if you think about it this way, these podcasts aren't just about Shondaland shows, although some of them are about your favorite shows like Scandal and Bridgerton, but they're really just kind of their own stories. They're their own separate ecosystem, their own separate channel for storytelling. So we love Shondaland because you can storytell on screen, but also through the audio platform. So I'm really excited to just sit down today and talk to all these incredible hosts who you're going to get to know, whether you're a fan of these hosts as people, whether you are a fan of Shondaland and you just want the inside scoop on everything Bridgerton, if you just love storytelling, if you're an aspiring storyteller or producer or writer, this is the right place for you because we have all types of podcasts. We have conversational, companion, advice. We have it all. We really, really do. And the hosts are just super funny. We were all just backstage chatting and having a good time. And we said, maybe we shouldn't bring everyone on one by one. Maybe we should all just chat at once because it was such a good time. But oh, look, we have Erica, we have Ganeet, Vanessa from Nashville, Cassie, oh my goodness, Julie, so many people here. Thank you so much for showing up. I'm Mia. I'll introduce myself again and just say hi. But it's going to be a really good time. So I'll tell you guys, these hosts are very fun. They're silly. They have a lot of depth. They have heart. I've been listening to these shows for a long time, but also, again, all weekend, all this morning, all last week, all month. And it's just been such a delight to hear their voices. You're going to love them. And kind of like your favorite Shondaland characters, like Meredith Grey or like Eloise Bridgerton or like Olivia Pope. These people are really unabashedly themselves, and you're going to see in just a minute just how authentic and amazing they are. So just a quick run through today before we bring on our first guest. We're going to get into themes because I think we all know these are podcasts. You kind of can look on iHeart Media, shout out, to see what they're about, but we really want to talk about the themes in these shows. So for example, we're going to talk to Criminalia host about true crime ethics, and to Katie Lowe's from Scandal about motherhood, and with Obama's other daughters about culture, and Jess Wiener as well. So just think of this as a little bit of audio charcuterie, if you will. Put it on in the background while you're working. Again, grab your emotional support water bottle. Hi from Brazil. Oh my gosh, Buenos Aires, Arizona. Brandon, hi everybody. So join on in. You are just on time. You are not late. It's going to be like one big podcast today. It's going to be awesome. And then at the end of each one, they're going to kind of recommend, what episode should you start with if you're looking for something to listen to. So let's get right into it. I'm really excited for this first podcast guest and this first podcast. So it's One Best TV and Streaming Podcast for 2002. It's the winner of that for Adweek, and it is the Bridgerton official podcast and the Queen Charlotte official podcast with Gabrielle Collins. She's great. Gabby, as she goes by. She's a journalist. She's a podcast expert. She's known for her work at iHeartMedia. Let's bring her on. Gabby.
Hey, Mia.
Welcome. How are you?
Hi, doing all right. Long time no see.
Long time no see. We were just backstage kikiing. We were like, can we stop? This is so fun. So I'm excited to chat with you because you're forever giving us the whistle down. Like, you give us the whistle down all the time. At this point, you host, it's Bridgerton and Queen Charlotte. So yes. At this point, I feel like it should just be the Queen Gabby official podcast. Truly. Okay, so you host this companion podcast. Obviously, you talk about people, you interview the stars. It gives us a peek behind the curtain of all these episodes of Bridgerton that Shondaland does and how they make it. One thing I have to say I really like is that the conversations you have with people just about the storylines, the themes in the show, like coming of age and being a woman in that time, and in general, like your conversations with Julia Quinn. Oh my gosh, it's just so good.
I
With
love Julia. Yeah.
it's just incredible, and the historical context too. You learn a lot about Regency era. So I want to know, just for you to start, why podcasting? Like, you've had an incredible career in podcasting. Why did you choose this medium?
I love all things audio. Like, I love music. That's where really I started, and I think it's just an intimate space. You can just be really intimate. Before long, all of the things that visually kind of get in the way of just having a good time, and cause anxiety just fall away, and you can just have a really good conversation and tap in. And I love it. And I just have a thing for, I don't know, it's one of my favorite senses. I like to listen. And I just love it. Yeah.
It's
Podcasting for intimacy.
Yes, I love what you have to say about intimacy. It really does feel like you're kind of just having a conversation with the friend, especially when we're listening to you on the podcast. So I have a surprise. I want to show you something.
Oh, no.
So we have a review that someone left, and I really loved it, so I wanted to share. So the person titled it, "Enjoying While I Wait," and this is so good, and this is so true. Okay, so it says, "I love podcasts that enhance my viewing experience. I've been obsessed since Lost." Very specific. So I was happy to find this one so I can listen while waiting for the second half of season 3 to drop. Now I'm thinking I need to read the books. Not you making readers out of people, chronic readers.
Okay.
Come on. So one thing I love too is that you're a fan yourself. Like, you're a fan of Bridgerton, you're a fan of Queen Charlotte. So you talk to all these incredible people like Nicola, like Luke. So how do you prepare for these episodes? Like, how do you prepare in a companion podcast? How do you prepare to talk to people?
Oh man, I am not the stalker type. I don't look at everyone's social. I like to come in fresh, we're speed dating. So I really just stick to what's on screen and just allow not knowing some of these folks personally drive the conversation. So yeah.
I really love that, Gabby, because I feel like with so many things, we want to know about the people behind the character they play. But to be able to say, let's just talk about the work, I'm sure that's such a refreshing moment for the actors and for the directors and for the scenic design people, the producers, everybody, to really just talk about the work. And it shows because you guys get really, really deep into the meanings of things and very specific choices in the show. So that's amazing. I should know this, but has Julie Andrews been on the podcast yet?
No. No.
I'm like, imagine you talking to her.
I know. But man, I mean, we talk so much about the Whistle Down, though, don't we? And I mean, I have at least had an opportunity to speak with I got to speak with Tom Verica a ton, and he worked a lot with Julie. So that is as close as I got to that. Amazing.
What did he say? Do you remember that conversation? Can you
just that she's as amazing as we all think she is. And that's pretty much it.
That's incredible, Gabby. And I see Anna commented, Luke, Anna, Nicola. Yes, you can listen to them on the podcast. Gabby's talked to them both.
I love speaking with Nicola. She's so generous. She really takes us all behind the scenes and just adds that nuance of just what is every day like, and really just cares a lot about the craft and her colleagues. And she's wonderful to speak with. And Luke is fun and really takes his role seriously too. So yeah, they're all so great.
That's fantastic. Yes. So everybody, you can go listen to Gabby on iHeartMedia, wherever you find your podcast. She's the host of the Bridgerton official podcast, but also the Queen Charlotte official podcast. If you want to go back, I think I'm glitching. Can you see me?
I can see you.
Okay, amazing. Well, thank you so much, Gabby, for coming on. You're the best. Before we go, though, is there any specific episode you think people should listen to? A good place for them to start?
I really think that listening to any episode with Hannah Gregg is good. So that takes you all the way back to the first season. And that allows, especially if you just need a refresher on why things are the way they are in the Bridgerverse. That's a really great place to start. The first season allows you to really unpack all the whys and reasons behind a lot of what we all get to see and enjoy on screen.
Wow, that's incredible. Thank you so much, Gabby, for coming. I hope we talk again. Thank you. Bye. Oh, Gabby's the best, which makes sense because that podcast has over 4.8 million lifetime downloads. Pretty crazy. Okay, well, let's hop into the next interview. This show that I'm going to talk about coming up and talk with the host of has over 200 episodes. If you're looking for a new podcast to binge, if you want something really fun to listen to, especially the spooky season coming up. Like it's October tomorrow, y'all. So we're going to talk to the host of Criminalia. We are going to talk to Holly and Maria, and I'm going to welcome them on the show. Holly and Maria.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, friends. How are you?
Spectacular. We get to hang with you.
Oh my gosh.
Exactly.
Stop it.
What a good day.
This is the best day. I'm so excited to be talking to you both. I love Criminalia. I love how each season has this different, it discusses a different flavor of historical crime, which is really, really cool. And I like that you both met on how stuff works. I think that's
right.
really interesting. And that Maria,
been a long time.
Yeah,
Sorry.
you guys have been together a long time. No, it's okay. And Maria, you write the episodes of Criminalia, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then Holly, you make a drink at the end.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Incredible. Okay, so everybody should listen. But first, I really want to talk to you all about there's this fascination right now with not true crime, but I feel like now people are really interested in true crime ethics. So ethics.
Yeah.
Well, I wanted to know how you all feel about that conversation happening right now, and then how has that your beliefs that you'll talk about influenced your work on Criminalia?
I mean, really, our thoughts about true crime are evident in the entire setup of the show, because I understand the appeal of true crime. I understand why people are drawn to these really dark stories, but it starts to feel for me, and I think Maria, a little bit voyeuristic. And I wanted to talk about the weird things people have done without ever leading to a point where someone has strangers showing up on their doorstep going like, hey, I heard about your relative's murder and I have ideas. And that is why we are historical true crime.
Yes. So we have a couple just sort of like loose rules that we go by, and no one can be alive anymore and be a topic of our story. So we do a lot of things that are Victorian, a lot of things in ancient Rome. There's no real sense from either of us, I think, that we're trying to glamorize anything. We're just trying to look at it from a different perspective, from today's perspective. And maybe that means that this person really wasn't guilty, or maybe it means this person absolutely was guilty. But we do take a look at it, and I think both of us have have done these stories, and at the end of it gone, wow, that was a really tough one to get through, or that one makes me want to cry, or I can't believe that this is, but there were no laws for this during this time, so X happened, and let's talk about why. And so because of those rules, I think we've stayed that way over our 200 episodes, and I actually think it's been really very interesting to stay in the historical zone rather than in this happened 2 weeks ago and let's talk about it right now because everybody is, and that's a little less exciting because everybody is talking about it.
Yeah. Wow, that's wonderful. I was listening back through some episodes, and I was laughing so hard at you were talking about poisoning, and
that it was a lot of that.
It's called inheritance powder. I was like, or inheritance. What was it? Arsenic? Inheritance powder? Maybe that is what it is. But I couldn't stop laughing. It's like you learn so much when listening to your podcast as well, which is pretty dang amazing. But, you know, like you kind of mentioned, Maria, you guys kind of go down this path of humans have always committed crimes. You know, so what can we learn from your work from the criminals and crimes of the past? Do you think humans have gotten better or worse over time? Like, what do you think they say about today?
I mean, the through line is that people have always done terrible things and that people have always been wrongfully accused. I mean, that's kind of, in some ways, it's very reassuring to be like, okay, we're not necessarily in the worst period of human history, which is how we all tend to feel when we, you know, look at the news or the world around us. Yes. But it is also a little bit depressing at times where it's like,
right. It's always been
learned
bad.
Anything.
You're like, this just stinks.
It just keeps going. Yeah.
Right. It's just different weapons and different poisons.
Yeah. More news coverage.
Yes. Yeah. But I actually think that we've done maybe one in our arson season that was from like the 1980s, but that might have been the most recent that we've ever done. I think up until we usually go up to about the Depression. The Great Depression. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting question for Bridgerton fans. Have you done anything Regency era or?
We've tipped it. I don't think we've done any specifically in the Regency era.
Okay.
We've definitely had stuff that crosses over. One of the tricky things is, and if you've listened, you know this, like the farther back you go, the harder it is to get primary sources. And so that's always a little bit of a gamble when we pick episodes, and a balance when we try to do it. We end up having to couch a lot of our language and say, hey, this isn't substantiated, but 3 different sources all say essentially the same thing. So it kind of follows the rules of news at that point, where it's like, it seems correct, or it seems like an amazing propaganda system. And that's part of what we analyze.
Wow. And sometimes you have 3 versions of a story, and we end up telling each one of them too, because it sort of becomes a little choose your own true crime adventure at that point.
Who do you believe? Yeah.
Who do you believe really did what? Yeah.
That's so dynamic. So you have some fans in the comments. One person says, I'm loving the season of Partners in Crime.
Woo. Oh, great. I am too, except it's a violent season.
It is. There's a lot of darkness in this one that I don't think we anticipated when we went in.
We've never, I didn't anticipate all of the hail of gunfire that I'd be writing about. But I actually think that we have been telling the story, and every story we're like, wow, okay, what's that drink going to be?
Speaking of drinks, okay, so you all have a recipe book coming out.
Yeah,
we do. Cocktails.
Oh my goodness! Can you tell us everything about this? Okay, so it's called Killer Cocktails. That's it.
There it is. It's a beautiful book. It's beautiful. I love it. It's a combination of cocktails and mocktails from the show, plus a shortened story that goes along with that, the cocktails inspired by. And there are some news stories in that book as well, with cocktails to go with them too. So it's not everything from an episode that you may have heard if you're a longtime Criminalia listener.
Yeah, about 50% of them are new.
Yeah.
So new drinks, new cocktails, new mocktails, new stories.
New stories.
My goodness. Do you have... Oh, go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead. Go, sorry.
I was going to ask if you had a favorite cocktail or mocktail that you can tell us about, but if you can't, that's okay.
I do. I actually have a favorite cocktail. I know this because this cocktail came out in season 1. And it was from a story about a woman named Locusta, who was a poison maker in ancient Rome. She wasn't a poisoner. She made the poisons. And then she would, mostly her clients were the imperial court. So Nero, they got their poisons from her. Wow. So her drink, inspired from her story, is called the botanist's latte. Because if she'd gone in a different direction, she totally could have been an apothecary, but she was like, nope. Want to kill people instead. Let's just do that.
Make it a Shondaland show.
It's a lovely drink. It's it's a latte. It's based in almond milk, and it has Earl Grey. It has brandy. It has culinary rosebuds that you're simmering together. And I'm not a big sweet drink fan, so I don't add this. But if you need a little bit of sweetener, a little sweetener mixed into there. And Holly has this brilliant way of swapping out alcohol for mocktails. Like she always does. I'm like, wow, I never would have thought about putting that as the substitute. And the substitute for the mocktail in this is white grape juice with a little bit of vanilla in it. And both versions are excellent. I tend to fault toward the cocktail version, but I've been drinking this drink since. But she was, I would say, like maybe our third, fourth, possibly fifth episode. She was way early on. Yeah. And so I've been sticking with her and her poisonous ways for quite a long time now. But I would say that I also have a second part of this answer before. Sorry, Holly. My favorite season of the entire seasons that we've done is the 8th season, which is the art heist season. And it's my favorite for many reasons. And I think it's also Holly's favorite season too.
It is.
And one of the reasons is because Holly did this very cool thing with the cocktails and mocktails, which was she tried to mimic the art that was stolen in the cocktails that she was making. I mean, how cool is that? So I love the stories of that season. I love writing about art, but I also love the fact that the cocktails, and I didn't know at first, she was like, can you guess what I'm doing? And me, dumbhead here, was like, no, I have no idea what you're doing. And as soon as I found out, I was like, well, I have to go back and make them because now I have to see the drinks and the paintings together. But yes, my favorite episode drink and my favorite season of drinks is those.
Yeah, what would you recommend, Holly?
Well, there's a really fun entry in the book that's not on the podcast, which is about this theft that happened at Mexico's National Museum of Anthropology.
Oh, yeah.
And a lot of teeny tiny treasures were stolen. And so when Maria was like, I want to put this in the book, and I started thinking about what we could do, I decided that what I wanted to do was do a flight of shots.
It's brilliant.
I have very strong feelings about shots. Like, I feel like when you're like at a bar or something, people get a lot of pressure about shots. I think shots should be like miniature cocktails. They should be tasty on their own. And moreover, if you don't want to do that, they should be something that you can add like a club soda or a ginger ale to and have a more sippable, softer kind of thing. And so some of these are really fun. Like there's one that that mimics a jade funerary mask that was stolen. And so
they're so much fun.
That has like a green tea infused tequila and then a little bit of mint syrup and a little bit of aloe juice. And you just sub out that tequila for a green tea in the mocktail version. And they're all kind of like that. So I really love that one.
Yeah, and also from Art Heist season, it's just a great.
It is
great
Art Heist season is my favorite for sure.
Yeah, Holly made a drink, and I think it might have been the very final one in Art Heist season, or it's at least the final one in the book, and it's about a Picasso that had gone missing, and the drink name has to be one of my favorite drink names that we have done. She knows exactly what it is. It's the Tipsy Pigeon.
Oh,
and the Tipsy Pigeon is I love that the book ends on that because that's just a great little cocktail and cocktail name.
Oh my goodness. Well, people need to know this fun fact so they can pre-order that book.
Yeah.
There's an event coming up on 10/2.
On
yes,
Wednesday.
We do.
So fun. Amazing.
Yeah.
There it is.
Is hosting us.
Incredible. Thank you so much for stopping by, you two. I hope everybody goes back to your favorite episodes and becomes really big fans of the show because it's really well done. It's really well done.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all so much. Bye.
Thank you, Mia.
All right. Thanks, y'all, for hanging in there. So we have, someone just said Happy International Podcast Day. They love pollen. Carolina. Oh my gosh. Amazing. I'm glad. Me too. A huge fan of pollen. So you'll have to go listen to the official Bridgerton podcast. But for now, we're going to bring on our next host. So I'm really, really excited. This podcast is fantastic. It's about 4 funny honeys, as they call themselves, talking about the culture, everything from stereotypes to money to cults. And sometimes experts come on. It's just really unique perspectives and a really funny perspective on the culture as well. So we're going to bring in host of You Down. Welcome.
Hi.
Hi, Yasmin. How are you?
I'm so good. How are you?
I'm great because I'm here with you. And
Hey.
wait, I love this. What is this portrait that you have behind you? This painting that says is a star?
Oh yeah, it's a song that I love, and there's just like I have art everywhere along with some of my favorite books. So yeah, I'm like, hello.
Okay, so you have to tell us. So it's a group of 4 of you.
Yeah.
But your name, it started as a comedy troupe, and it's Obama's Other Daughters. So
Yes.
can you please tell us about this name?
Yeah. So when we were like, okay, how will we denote that like we are a team of all Black women? And we did a lot of improv. I don't know for those of you who are familiar with Upright Citizens Brigade Theater, but a lot of comedians have come out of that space. And it was so fun for us to be able to just play with each other. We used to say we don't have to code switch the punchline. And we had such a fabulous time doing improv, we developed shows with Netflix and Comedy Central, and toured and got paid to do improv, which was a thing that never happened. And we also like had this beautiful podcast with Shondaland and iHeart. So it was truly a spectacular experience.
Oh my gosh, that's really cool how that all came together, and you can tell because the camaraderie pops off out of the phone, out of whatever computer, whatever you're listening from. You can really tell that you all are friends and you have this very specific vibe with each other. It kind of feels like it's comforting in the way that Sex and the City and like Girlfriends is comforting, and you really feel like each 4 so different but so like very similar, and it's truly just a joy to listen to you all. So thank you for that. But I have a surprise for you, Yasmin.
What? Oh,
okay, so there's a review. It's really good. It says, love these funny honeys. It says, this show is so good. All their topics are really interesting, and the way they discuss everything is hilarious and conversational. I feel like I'm just sitting in the room with them, and sometimes I want to jump in with my comments too.
yes.
And they said the advice part at the end is one of their favorite parts, and they highly recommend. You have fans.
Oh my God. That is so joyful. It's about like, I feel like we wanted it to be this like sort of kiki vibe where it's just like, come chill with us, hang out, it's like hanging out with your friends, you know? And that was like one of the parts that I loved the most. And what a beautiful, please tell them I said, what up?
I will. Marissa said it. So she brought up advice at the end, which I really liked. So what is a piece of advice from the show that's most memorable to you? Like when an expert came on, is there something that you kind of like logged away and you were like, I'm gonna remember this?
There were so many episodes that I really loved. And it's not so much as like one word of advice, but we had an episode around sort of death and grief. And you know, I live in the comedy space, and even through that, around the time that we were recording this podcast, my father transitioned, and then a couple years later, my mom transitioned as well. And so I really appreciated the words that that Amy shared with us around grief and just like getting through that process, but also finding the joy in grief. I know like I had so much joy in this space on this podcast, and it really helped me navigate some tough times. So I think that definitely like stayed with me. Cause yeah, who knew that I would like need the words of advice that she like left for us in that episode. But I think it's something that we all deal with. Don't mind my cats in the background.
Oh, bring them on. I'm just kidding.
Right.
That's so beautiful. And that's the beauty of audio storytelling as a medium, right? Is you can kind of hear these things once and be like, ooh, I like that. And then when you need them the most, you can go back and listen, and they're there. And you can do it, while you're processing different things in life that you're going through, while you're on a walk, while you're in the car, while you're washing dishes. And to know that you have kind of had that advice and stuck with you is really nice. So I'm curious, if you were to record an episode today, right now, what are you itching to talk about? Like, what is a cultural topic you're like, we need to discuss this?
Low-key, I'm like, they did my girl Marina dirty. I've been holding that in for so long from Bridgerton. Okay. One thing that I would talk about, and this is sort of shameless plug, but I just released a book of poems called A Vessel Born to Float. It is my first full-length book. It just came out on Tuesday, September 24th. And so I would love to do an episode on poetry, particularly around like poetry and comedy. I think that there's like a world where both exist, and I would love to just like hear what they felt about my poems. And like, yeah, especially because the comedy was so separate. So I would have loved to do an episode that combined sort of us talking about the two blending of the worlds. But yeah. I'm seeing the congratulations in the comments. Thank you.
I know people are so proud of you. Oh, we can't wait. Oh my gosh, someone wants you to talk about the hippo in Thailand. Mudang. I would love an episode on that.
Well, so you know what's wild? We literally did a trip to Thailand for like Thanksgiving one year, and we like literally were like tasting, like doing like, let's taste all the chips in Thailand, and like documenting our experience traveling. I think that would have been a great episode for us to do, like OOD on the road, you down to travel, especially now that the pandemic is, well, not quite over, but you know what I mean? We're back outside. Yeah. That would have been a very fun episode, and we would have definitely found Mudang.
Oh my, imagine the interview. You're just like, hello. Okay, and what do you think about skincare?
Give us all the tips. We need to know.
Tell us. Okay, so Yasmin, before you go, will you tell us which episode, you mentioned a few, but which episode you think people should start with if they want to start listening?
So really quickly, can I add, my Shakira just joined the chat. She's in the backstage area.
Yes. Should we bring her in?
There she is.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
Great. Happy to be here. Sorry, I'm so late.
Oh no, we love this. Do you see how fun this is? This is a revolving door. Like this is, we're just kikiing. We're having
good.
You're right on time. You're right on time. So I was asking Yasmin, which episode would you recommend people start with if they're like, wait, I really love this. I love these girls. They're funny honeys. What should they listen to? What should they start with?
Ooh, I mean, we had such fun ones. I loved our astrology one because we kind of talked with Chanie Nichols, who I'm obsessed with, and also like kind of shared our personal astrology, so you kind of get to know us in that regard. But I did love which one? The one we did with Rachel. That one. I felt like
with Rachel Cargill.
Yeah, I felt like
gosh, I love her
conversation as well.
Yeah.
What do you think our best? But maybe one of our first ones about the hair, because that's just like really getting to know us.
Black Herstory. It's good. That's a very good episode. Yes. Yeah. And the Bantu knots too. Bantu do's and do nots.
Yes. We had like, I was looking back at some of these titles. I was like, this was ridiculous. This was such a ridiculous title.
For a minute, I thought you were going to say we were looking back at these titles and they were really good.
Don't smash the homie a finale.
I mean, and that's true. I think that still holds up.
We need to hear from
two roommates, one song. Literally.
Oh, that was horrible.
Episodes.
Yes.
Stories.
Yes.
Okay, so basically everybody should go listen to every single episode.
Basically.
Start from the beginning, work your way through.
Yes.
Amazing. Great. So love it when the four of you together, but I'm so happy to have the two of you here today. Thank you so much for joining. This has been, to use Jasmine's word, very joyful. So it's nice to be in this space with you, and we hope you come back again. So thank you so much. All right, bye.
Bye.
Yay, that was so much fun. They're great. And just so you guys know, they recorded that during the pandemic, all four of them. They never recorded one episode in the same room. But the camaraderie, again, is just so strong. It really feels like you're watching Sex in the City or Girlfriends. And it's really, I can't explain it anymore. It's just one of those things where you have to go and you have to listen to just really understand how great it is. But let's bring up our next guest. So speaking of guests, this woman is incredible, but she's had some amazing guests on the show, from people you've seen online, in movies, Shonda herself, just talking about really important things like beauty, self-love, invisible disabilities, even body image. And the name of that podcast is Dominant Stories. And Jess Weiner is the host. She's a cultural expert. She's a brand advisor. She's actually spent decades educating and speaking on cultural trends in order to help people feel more seen and heard and understood. So let's welcome Jess to the stage.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. So happy to be here.
So thrilled to have you. You have no idea. I, for one, and I think everybody can agree that the concept of this podcast is stellar. It's so important in today's world because it talks about dominant stories, means like the stories that we tell ourselves about ourselves. And one thing I love that you say is, these stories thrive in secrecy, but not when we talk about them. Nope. And that's why you have this podcast. It just reclaims and rewrites all these ideas. I love your Sarah Bareilles episode. I think it was the pilot
too.
So good. And it just kind of addresses this inner monologue. So I wanted to ask you today, what is the biggest dominant story you see influencing or dominating our culture, whether that's in movies or TV shows or podcasts? What is the conversation you're seeing?
It's so funny, Mia, because I have been doing this work in some shape or form for 30 years. I have been in conversations in dorm rooms and boardrooms and conference centers, right? Talking to the most incredibly accomplished human beings. And the dominant stories piece is really designed because culture tells us these dominant stories about ourselves, right? What women should be doing and wearing and acting like, and through gender, through race, through age, all of the shoulds in the world. And so this show is really designed to deconstruct those shoulds. And I would say that the biggest dominant story that I think still exists in our minds, the stories we tell ourselves, especially as women, is imposter syndrome, is I don't deserve to be here. I'm not good enough. And the sister story to that is I'm too much. And so I think, right, like, I feel like that's what, no matter any guest we had on the show, anybody I meet in my real life work, everybody, no matter what their title or accomplishment, is still struggling with, am I worthy enough to be here? And am I too much for this person to love me, to stay, to accept? And those are, again, like sister stories to me that women get told a lot about where our worth and value is centered.
Wow. I love the way you describe it as sister stories. And it almost reminds me of the spectrum, like everything in life is a spectrum, right? Yeah. And a pendulum, and it swings. And if it's not one thing, it's the other, but it's so much about finding that middle. Where can you learn from imposter syndrome, learn to be like, okay, I don't know everything, but I do know some things, and I'm here to learn and show up. And I want to be good, but I am good. And then also to not be like, I'm over the top, but like, I know my stuff and I'm good. There's something really, really just powerful and beautiful about that, and all of the stories you tell. Elizabeth in the comments says hello, by the way.
Hello. And it's funny that you mentioned that about kind of striking the middle ground, because I think one of the reasons I was so excited to do this show together with Shondaland was because I feel like in the world of storytelling, right, and the stories that we tell ourselves, our lives get very much shaped by what we think we should be doing. Those shoulds are a big one. And for me, my dominant story was always like, my work was my worth. And so, and I know a lot of people at any stage of their career can identify with that, right? I'm only as good as my title, my salary, my role, my accomplishments, like the goals that I'm achieving. And while I love that we have goals and we're ambitious human beings, I think one of the things that can really kind of, I don't know, sort of like decrease our self-esteem and really kind of keep us on the sidelines is this idea that we're nothing more than what we're putting out in the world or what we're accomplishing. And I think in the digital age, that can also be really hard because we're performing our lives all the time online, even when we're sharing the highlight reels. And we need more story time like we had in this show to kind of hear the most amazing artists of our generation are on this show, I think. And they're all saying, I have a dominant story. This has held me back. This is something I believe about myself that I want to create a new story around.
Oh, that's so good. Y'all, do you hear this? You can get more of this when you listen to Dominant Stories, but hours and hours and hours. And it's really, really just powerful what you talk about on the show. So I also wanted to know the biggest lesson you've learned in doing this show, in dealing with big emotions, like in these dominant stories in our head, whatever that dominant story is for each person. Yeah. What is something you learned in this show that you're like, that's a really great way to deal with these big emotions?
It's interesting. I feel like, again, no matter who we talked to on the show, whether it was Shonda herself or whether it was Sarah Bareilles, or one of my favorite episodes was with Alex Lockamore, who is the lead musical director for Hamilton. And, you're talking about these accomplished artists and storytellers. And I think anybody who aspires to be in this industry or around this industry, we often feel like everybody else has it figured out. And I would say one of the things that came up consistently was even the most high performing creatives, especially in this space, have these dominant stories that they live with. And you said kind of the key word, which is balance. And I would add maybe a clarifying word, which is harmony, which means that, these two things can live at the same time. I can be incredibly accomplished and creative and smart, and it's the yes and approach. And I can have these dominant stories that I'm struggling with and that I'm recognizing every day. I think Sarah Bareilles taught me a lot in our episode around how she can compartmentalize those stories at times where she's learning to heal and rewrite those stories, but that part of those stories help her create beautiful art. And it is the tension point of how that gets there. So I would say one of the things I've taken away is it is all about perspective and balance. And nobody is immune to this, no matter if they're an Academy Award winner or a Grammy winner, like all the highest accolades in the world don't stop you from absorbing maybe some childhood stories that you heard, that you kind of took in from your parents, from your schooling, from friendship scenarios. Like we all sort of tell ourselves a story about who we are, what we're worth, and how worthy we are of love. And I think when I heard these incredibly inspiring people also say, which is why I love what you said earlier, like when we take it out of the shadows and we put it into the light, you know that you're not alone. And I think for me, it gave me that perspective. And it reminded me that I can have both of these things to be true. And I could still be working on rewriting my dominant stories while I'm out there kicking ass,
Heck yes. I love that. And I think I want to go back to something you said too. I think it's so fascinating about this idea of like, we forget we're not human doings. We forget that we're human beings. And I think your show really brings this idea of like, we all struggle no matter who you are, but also we all have these emotions, and that levels us out, and it makes us it's very comforting to know that from, like you said, like the most great artists and celebrities and TV stars and movie stars and stage directors and writers, we all feel the same emotions, and that's comforting in a way, which is really, really cool. So, okay, one quick question I wanted to ask you. I noticed in some of your podcasts, you ask about little blank. So you say little Jess,
yep,
or little Shonda, or little Sarah Bareilles. So I wanted to know what was little Jess like, and also why is it so important to think about this in terms of our own lives? Like, why is it so important to think about our little selves?
Well, the reason why I bring up the little self is because oftentimes those dominant stories happen to us when we're little, right? We get feedback as little kids before we're fully formed, right? About our talent or our looks, or, or even a comment a stranger can tell us when we're a young person can get lodged in our like identity center, and it becomes a story we tell ourselves over and over. So I like to ask about the little self, because I think even though we've got grown-up bodies and we're walking around in the world as adults, we all have the little self inside that's been hurt and wants more love and wants to be seen, heard, and understood, which is like a driving value system for me. So I think it's important to like bring our inner kids into the conversation. And the reason why I do that is because little Jess didn't feel seen, heard, and understood for a variety of reasons. I've written 2 books about it. I talk about it on the podcast. I've got stories that I think will resonate with a lot of people. But for me in particular, it was about how I engaged with what I thought I looked like, whether I thought I was beautiful, whether I thought I had a body that was worth moving and loving and taking care of. I've struggled with my body image on and off my whole life. And so I think the reason when I say little Jess, what I imagine is me at 12. I have this image in my head. I had kind of like my Jufro was out of control. I had like my buck teeth, and I hadn't had my braces yet. And, I was an ethnically ambiguous kid growing up in the 80s and 90s in Miami, which sounds amazing now. But then everybody wanted to look like blonde and bouncy and tall and thin and white. And by the way, those beauty standards still exist. So, I was really struggling with where I fit in. But one of the things I love about little Jess was she was infinitely curious, Mia. Like she always had questions, and she always wanted to understand how things worked. And what I love as I've rewritten my own dominant stories about my worth and my value and my beauty is that I get to do it through curiosity. And that's one of the key elements in rewriting your dominant story. You get to ask yourself, is this necessarily true? What else do I want to know about myself or be about myself that I could bring forward? So it's always a question-based kind of system. And so I think about little 12-year-old Jess and the fact that her curiosity has been a cornerstone of my career as a cultural expert and brand advisor for 3 decades. It is the cornerstone of our conversations on this podcast. And it brings me a lot of joy as an adult to have conversations like this, where mutual curiosity can bring us to a better place individually and together.
Manatee loves this. Manatee in the comments says, your insight is incredible. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you, Manatee. I appreciate that.
And it's true. You're so insightful. So, as listeners are listening to this and they're like, wait, Jess is cool. She has a lot of good things to say. What episode should they dig into first? What episode are you like, this is where you should start. This is a good one.
I think you hit it on the head. I think Sarah Bareilles is one of my favorites because she, if you don't know, I mean, we all love her music, whether you may be conscious of it or not. She has just been so vulnerable about her becoming more of who she is as somebody who struggles with mental health and depression, as somebody who's obviously a high-performing artist. This was before Girls 5 Eva and her incredible new success on Peacock and Waitress, the musical. Like, there's just some beautiful elements in there. And then, of course, like, I love our Shonda episode. I mean, it was such a blessing to be able to sit down and talk with her and hear from her. And I will say this for people who want to listen to that episode, I was surprised at what Shonda said about her dominant story. And I'm just going to leave a little tingle and tease out that because, everybody wants to look under the hood and be like, what does the world's greatest storyteller tell about herself? And I think what she shares in that episode would surprise people.
Yes. So both are phenomenal. And one thing that makes this show work is that the guests who come on and you are both vulnerable. This show would not be possible without vulnerability. It wouldn't ring true. But because these people bring themselves and they're so open, it really just changes the dynamic and it lets you feel like you can also be vulnerable with yourself. So thank you for the work you do. Thank you so much for coming, Jess. You're fantastic, as you know. But it's so great to have you. Thank you so much.
It's so good to be here. Mwah. Thanks, you guys.
Bye. Thanks to Jess for coming on the show. She's great. You guys really have to listen to that podcast. There's a lot of amazing things like in Sarah Bareilles' that episode. She talks about treating your creativity like a relationship. And I've just learned so much from Jess and so much from her guests. And I want you to feel the same way so we can all talk about it. So go ahead and listen. But I'm very excited for our next guest. You all probably know her. She's been a very famous, popular, iconic meme and GIF on the internet. Her name is Iyanla Vanzant, Miss Iyanla Vanzant, and her podcast with Shondaland is the R Spot. So it started as a YouTube series and was kind of built into this podcast because it was such a big deal that was resonating with people. And she's great. She's a best-selling author. She's a famed spiritual life coach. So before I can really say anything more about her, I think she'll introduce herself with her energy. Let's bring on Miss Iyanla.
Good afternoon, beloved. How are you?
Good afternoon. Grand Rising every part of the day. I'm like, I don't know that it's 2:49. Grand Rising.
Yeah, Grand Rising and great to
How are
meet
you, Miss Iyanla?
I am good. Just enjoying this cloudy kind of day that it's still warm. Sad that it's getting dark early.
Not like 5
And I'm
p.m.
good. I know. I like it when it stays late, late. I love it.
I know, more light, and you bring light, which is why I love you so much. So I love the R spot. As you know, we've talked before. People can go listen to that conversation on Shondaland.com if they want. But R spot, so for people who don't know, R stands for relationships. You talk about every single type of relationship under the sun: platonic, familial, romantic, professional. You talk about how we relate to each other is the core of this show. And I love that it's this old radio feel because you invite callers and they call in and you hear their voices. It's really cool. So I'm just curious, just to peel back the curtain behind it all happens. How do you decide which caller questions to answer? Are you even allowed to tell us that?
Well, we put the question out and callers respond. We don't necessarily vet them what they're going to say, but we do put the issue out so that people they have something to say about it. They can come on. We tried to get like what we call co-hosts, so people who had a lot to say about the topic could come on with me and talk to other callers about it. So we've tried a variety of things because who you are, what you're doing, where you live, how much money you have, how poor you are, a relationship. Everybody's got a relationship story, a relationship challenge, a relationship experience, because relationships are the classroom that we all study in.
Oof, laying the wisdom on us already. 2:50 in the afternoon. Here you go. But I mean, that's one thing I've learned from you, Miss Iyanla, and from your show is that we don't just have relationships with people, we have relationship to things, to social media, to our finances, to technology, to anything. And you've covered, it feels like everything under the sun. And one thing you talk about a lot, which I love, and it's very unique to you and your show, you talk about having an emotional vocabulary. So I wanted to ask you, how do people gain an emotional vocabulary? What if they want one? There needs to be something like on a bookshelf. There needs to be like Dictionary Thesaurus, Miss Iyanla's Emotional Vocabulary Guide. How do people get this?
Well, right now, basically, you just got to get a list. Because so many of us are void of an emotional vocabulary and an emotional library. We know good, bad, happy, sad. We know angry. Some of us know frustration. But I had an experience the other day where I couldn't distinguish between sadness and grief. Now, of course, in grief, there is sadness, but the grief itself is a whole nother animal. And sadness associated with grief is about the thing you're grieving and not just the overall, sad, I'm not in the job I want. I don't have a relationship. I'm 12 pounds overweight. That's a sad, but the grief is accompanied by a longing or a missing. And I myself had to make that distinction, had to tease those things out because somebody was saying, you look sad. And I'm like, I'm sad. I'm not sad. I am grieving. I am grieving. I'm in a state of grief. I lost my daughter last year, and I lost my oldest daughter around Christmas time. But this period of the year is when she got sick, and I was in and out of the hospital, and I was taking care of her and her daughter. So as a mom, this time of the year triggers up a visceral response.
Yes.
So you add to that, and it's been only a year since I lost my youngest daughter. So I am grieving. I know that. But I didn't realize it's reading as sadness. So, but some people who don't have an emotional library, an emotional vocabulary, wouldn't be able to make the distinction. And they would think they're sad and go try to buy ice cream, buy some shoes, or, get some nookie so they could get happy when they're grieving. So, I mean, really, most people, you got to get a list. When I do classes and workshops, I literally give people an emotional list. I give them an emotional library and get people to start to okay, is this anxiety? Is this frustration? And the way you do that is ask your body. Don't just label it. Ask your, okay, what is this? What am I feeling?
Yeah. It's so funny you say all of that. And I asked this not even thinking about this, but I ordered myself a feelings wheel pillowcase. Why? I don't know.
Yeah.
But it's so nice to have it. Like I have it sitting on a chair out in our living room. And when I'm trying to figure out what am I feeling,
That's
to
right.
be able to actually look, and for people who don't know what a feeling wheel is, it starts small and it goes out to all these bigger emotions, but there's like 6 core emotions. And you're like, okay, I feel angry, but it's like, what type of angry, And it's so helpful. And just being able to label and really understand what you're feeling, it takes away power from the feeling in a good way.
Yeah.
But and then it empowers you. That power comes to you. You're like, this is just, I can name it. It's just that I'm sad. It's just grieving. That's
exactly what I do. I give people a feeling wheel. There are really only 2 emotions, love and fear.
Ooh.
And if it's not love, it's some derivative of fear. And like fear of what? Fear of the unknown, fear of change, fear. So for people to be able to get that in their body, because that's what shows up in our relationships. A lot of people think they're angry with their parents and they're disappointed. But if they've never calibrated that feeling of disappointment, they'll take that, the anger will show up in the relationship with their parents. Many people think that they're angry or upset with their partner when what they are is hurt. But how many people have really calibrated and understand what does hurt feel like in my body? How many people really know what love feels like in your body? Love that's not associated to a thing or a person or an experience, just to sit in the love. What does that feel? You know how many people don't know that? And so we take all of this emotional fusion and conflict or upheaval or the story about love and relationships that your last guest was talking about. We take that into a relationship, which is going to trigger up all of the unfinished business anyway, and then try to figure it out, It's so on the art, like you said, we talk about every kind of relationship, your relationship with your body, with money, with your mother, with other people. It's amazing to me. I'm always amazed.
It is amazing. And you have some great co-hosts. Love the Ace Metaphor episode. Jada Pinkett, you did an episode with her. You've had some great guests. You've had some great guests and some really even better conversations. So thank you for everything. Thank you for being you, Miss Iyanla. So question for you before we go, which episode, you have so many, before a listener gets into it, if you're like, start here, choose your own adventure, start here, what would you recommend that first episode be that they listen to?
Oh God, that's like asking a mother, which is your favorite child.
Too hard.
I'll tell you the episode I think that touched my heart the deepest. And I don't know the name of it, and I think it was last season. I was talking to a dad, a military father, who him and his wife had divorced. And he was literally weeping about the loss of his relationship with his daughters. And I think for women to hear a dad sit in the vulnerability of his broken heart around his baby girls. Oh my God. I was like, I want my daddy. because particularly as women, we don't think of men having that level of emotion. And he was very clear. He felt like a failure. He felt that he had failed them because he couldn't make the relationship work with their mother. He felt that he failed them because he was in the military and deployed so many places. He was afraid that because he wasn't there, they would pick the wrong kind. And he wept through the whole thing. He's weeping, I'm weeping. You know, I could have electrocuted myself on the microphone.
I'm glad you did it. We need you.
I don't know what the name of that, I don't know what we finally named that episode, but I would say start there. And also for women looking for love or looking for companionship, this season, the Ace Metaphor show was just outstanding. Yeah.
So good. You have a lot of fans in the comments. Manatee said you're explaining such complex subjects so well. Thank you. And someone else said, sorry, say it again.
I said you're quite welcome, Manatee.
I know, I love Manatee. And then a LinkedIn user said, this is so useful. What does love feel like in our body? We are always judged, so feeling love, it almost feels forbidden. Everyone's constantly finding out things about themselves when they're listening to you. And Our Spot, this show is such a testament to that. So thank you for everything you do.
And thank you for International Podcast Day. So everybody out there, be sure to get your favorites, particularly on Shondaland, and listen in. Listen in.
Start with Miss Iyanla. It's great. The Art Spot. Well, thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day. Bye.
Thank you, my love. Bye-bye.
Well, thank you all so much. Thank you to Miss Iyanla. Thank you to all of our guests. Thank you to iHeartMedia, because they're in collaboration with Shondaland. That's how we get our podcast made and out in the world. We had a fantastic lineup today. I also want to shout out Vanessa and Evan, who are behind the scenes, Alex and Lauren in our audio department. They really, really helm all of these incredible shows and feel very passionately about them. So shout out to them for all their work. We also have other Shondaland podcasts, y'all. Can you believe it? I mean, it seems like we have a lot, but they have a lot more. So we have the Laverne Cox Show with Laverne Cox, of course, Go Ask Allie with Allie Wentworth, Unpacking the Toolbox with Guillermo Diaz and Katie Lowe's, Katie's Crib about motherhood with Katie Lowe's, Flaky Biscuit with Brian Ford. Like we said in the beginning, anything you could ever want, any topic, lifestyle, body image, beauty, relationships, Bridgerton, Scandal, we have a podcast for it. You can read interviews with these hosts on the site, shondaland.com. You can also subscribe to our newsletter there. We send a newsletter twice a week. Sometimes we have our editor, Rebecca, write it. Sometimes I write it. Seth, Malcolm, everybody on the team, we all kind of contribute where we can to that. And you can see what's going on in Shondaland every week. And of course, finally, go listen to these incredible podcasts. On the way out, really just I would love to see in the comments, which one is calling to you? Which podcast do you really, really, really want to go listen to now? Let us know. And I would love to read that. And thank you all, of course, for coming today and for being here with us. Happy International Podcast Day. Have a beautiful one. Bye, everybody.